Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks. Today we're going to be watching a 1 versus 1 on Red Comet Remake version 1.8 today between our red player Zeal, going to be playing with an Armada commander here, so I'm expecting a whole lot of early game aggression, although to be fair I guess I'm expecting that out of both players here. Spawning on the eastern side. Yes, eastern side. had to put that in. Had to hold up my right hand, my left hand, think that through. We have Snoopa, our blue player here today, going to be contesting the red menace. Quite a true skill difference between these, but I absolutely love to see you guys getting out there, getting into these 1v1s and getting a whole lot of practice in. If you didn't see the video that I made, the two-parter with Barcast TV, go check that one out. He made a really good point about getting into the practice of playing 1 versus 1s, because it really helps you. Oh, there's a little Discord right there. Because it helps you develop the skills to become a self-sufficient player. You start to realize exactly how important it is to capture metal nodes. You're sort of forced to come to terms with exactly what it is that you should be going for, how to be cost effective when you're harassing the enemy and protecting yourself. Zeal going to be going for a vehicle lab, which I think is a great option here. The vehicles are going to have a great time on this nice open flat terrain here, and so I think there's not really an advantage to going bots on this one, because yeah, there's not a whole lot of terrain that bots can access but vehicles can't. The one condition I would say is probably these craters right here. These are probably only accessible to bots, or at the very least they're going to be very difficult for vehicles to enter and exit. So that's one potential area, but there's not really too much strategic importance to either of those craters. So I think vehicles is a great choice here, which Snoopa will be going for as well. Snoopa getting some rovers out on the field. Snoopa winning the the Brightworks Get a Unit Out on the Field award for this evening, and so I really like to see that. This early aggression can be absolutely critical. Downright necessary in keeping your opponent off balance, throw off their game a little bit, and force them to make decisions and possibly mistakes here. Zeal does not have a unit out yet, so these first units are going to be quite dangerous. Now, we do have these light laser turrets in place, but they are out of energy at the moment, so we do need to make sure that there's some sort of a mounted defense here. The rovers are just scouting around, trying to see what they can see. And so far, let's check out the vision of Snoopa. We can see Snoopa has scoped the base, but has not found the production here. They find a rover and decide to jump on top of it. The blue carts get the first hit in, and so Snoopa manages to win the very first fight of the game. Not without taking substantial damage on one of his rovers, though. This is a mirrored matchup, which is quite interesting. Means that individual units are going to not necessarily have a counter, and it's going to be a lot more useful to make compositions that counter your enemy, as opposed to just, you know, this unit counters this unit, that unit counters that unit, and all that good stuff. So two different philosophies here. We can see Zeal is going for the construction turret, which is in order to help with base building, and that'll be done in about 50 seconds. Whereas Snoopa is going for 3 construction vehicles here. And we're just using construction vehicles as opposed to building a construction turret. Which one is better? I'm not sure. I don't have enough experience playing 1v1 to definitively declare why one might be better than the other, but having the construction vehicles definitely does allow you to be more mobile with where you allocate your build power. So I think this is probably a better idea if you're going for the 1v1 situation. It also allows you to evacuate any of these, and if you need to expand a little quicker, you can always send one of these construction vehicles out on the map to be its own little expansion system, as opposed to using your commander. So that's always something to keep in mind. We do see a blitz from Zeal trying to make its way around here. We see it routed, all the way into the back of Snoopa's base, but Snoopa caught on quickly and is going to be sending blitzes to intercept and hopefully shut that down. Meanwhile, Zeal is approaching diagonally, just Power Chad walking towards the enemy base here. Very, very nice. That beautiful Armada commander stepping forward, being sure to announce its presence to the field, as glorious as it is. Snoopa deciding to keep things a bit more, shall we say, central, making sure to allocate all of the resources to a very easily defensible location. Snoopa's commander does manage to take down that blitz. One of these blitzes gets into the base, and it actually snipes a metal extractor, so that's quite nice. If that's all the damage it's done, though, I'm not sure if that's worth it, per se. We've got 65 metal in this wreckage, so If this metal extractor is down for long enough, it will be worth it, but it looks like we're going to have a constructor here rebuild that quickly, so I'm not sure that trade was quite worth it yet. Zeal also taking down a few blitzes here, which is, again, quite nice, because it does mean that we're going to have a nice little spot of metal to eat up quickly. There's been a recent change in tactics where the prevailing wisdom has been to send in or to start with a bot lab and then build a forward vehicle lab for production of those heavy hitters, which I think is quite a good idea. I think that actually works really well as a sort of a median between choosing one of the two, and it does give you the benefit of those res bots, which of course the vehicles don't have, so you can actually pick up all of these wreckages and fold them back into your army. That can be really powerful, especially later in the game when you don't have the T2 or T3 gantry up. And so you need a way to get those units out, and so the best way to do that is by resurrecting them off the field. A lot of blitzes pushing forward here. Light laser turret is all there is to defend this, and it will go down very quickly. Again, the metal extractors will go down as well. High level thinking, very high level strategic idea here. Just as I like to point out as a commentator, if you self-destruct one of these metal extractors here, you can see the explosion radius is enormous, and it does a tremendous amount of damage. So sometimes it's something worth considering. Like, if you see these blitzes approaching these metal extractors, you know for certain that these metal extractors are not going to survive that encounter with the blitzes. So it might very well be worth self-destructing these metal extractors. Like, here might be a good idea. You just start self-destructing it, and then it'll blow up and do way more damage to these blitzes than just the explosion of it being shot down. Again, that's a very risky thing to get right. That strategy rides on a razor's edge between being extremely wasteful and inefficient, because of course you don't get a wreckage if you self-destruct it. But it can also be tremendously good at helping you clear out these waves and sacrifice a little to protect the lot, if that makes sense. That's always the name of the game here. Light laser turrets are okay, but they're not going to be able to take down too many of these blitzes at once. Indeed, we see more and more metal extractors going down from Snoopa here, which I really like to see. Snoopa not as concerned about expansion as Zeal is. Zeal is pushed really far forward here, and I think Snoopa has done a better job of positioning, just making sure to lock down this corner, as opposed to Zeal, who has sort of expanded out in a straight line. But what that means is that this suddenly opens them up to a whole lot of harassment on all sides. And there's tons of blitzes out here. I think going for that bot lab would be a nice option, just because every one of these that you could resurrect and put back on the field would be a nice little boost for your economy here. Now there's tons of blitzes moving forward here. Does Snoopa actually have vision of this? No, we do not. The commander does not see them. The blitzes do not see them. There's actually no vision, no radar detection here for these units that are moving around on the top of the map here. Zeal's blitzers are going to be going around for a dangerous harassment. Very nice to see. Now that does mean, of course, that there are less available on the front lines for defense. Do we know where the base is? We do. So we're as you can see by the routing pattern here, they are just going to be sent directly into the main production facilities, which is quite nice. A lot of these are returning back home. This must have been spotted at some point here. Indeed, a radar went up and barely caught the tail end of that. More blitzes are here on the front line, though, and light laser turrets are going to be helping blast some of these down, which is very nice. These defenses are technically more efficient, but of course they're static, right? You can't move them around, can't maneuver them in any way. So the best option is, of course, to move your units underneath. I shouldn't say, of course, maybe this isn't obvious. The best option is to move your units underneath static defenses, so that you get the defensive opportunities of the defenses while still maintaining the mobility of your own mobile force. The Blitz is doing a nice amount of damage, tearing down a whole lot of economy back here, as well as the production facility. Ooh, the lab is in a lot of trouble, and indeed, it does go down. Yeah, the lab goes down, and a lot of these construction workers are hurt too, but I think they will just barely survive. They start up a new vehicle lab right away. Not going to waste a single second of time getting that second vehicle lab up. Very important here. That's definitely another benefit to going for those construction workers as opposed to construction turrets, is they tend to they don't explode as easily. They're a lot more resistant to plasma fire than the construction turrets are. We see beamers coming up now. We're upgrading to tier 2 of defenses. That's very nice to see. Tons and tons of metal in and wreckages on the field here, and there's not a great way to reclaim that quite yet. So I think we're definitely in for a little bit of a... Well, if this mirror match continues any longer, it's definitely going to swing in the favor of whoever can take advantage of all of that metal, is all I'm trying to say. Well, yeah, a little bit of an APM stall here as the blitzes are moving forward. Looks like Snoopa is desperately trying to recover the economy. We're building solar panels on the front line because we don't really have much of an option here. The lab is back up and running, but again, blitzes are in the main base, and they're going to keep shooting it down. And that is a second lab going down. Very, very nice pick from Zeal. Very nice job being aggressive, making sure that production continues to stand still. Really, really nicely done. Yeah, reclaiming a lot of this, very important. We're actually full on metal, so I don't think we need to reclaim too much here. We're actually wasting a little bit of metal. Commentators saying make factory here, and then he puts it here. Not quite a spec cheat, but a good spectator call, I suppose. The factory has moved forward to the front lines, which is quite nice. And I would love to see some better defenses coming up here. Maybe a heavy laser turret or a couple of beamers. That way these construction turrets can run for their lives without fear of losing them. But unfortunately that is not the case, as all of these construction workers are going to be taken down. Very nice pick. Suddenly Snoopa is in a huge amount of trouble. This is actually a really, really devastating blow here. We're going to need to see a lot of construction workers pumped out, but for the meantime it's just going to be the commander trying to funnel as much as possible into the lab here to make sure that the units are continually streaming out. Might be time to start up some T1 medium tanks, just because these blitzers are so numerous that it might be worthwhile to have enough of those tanks on the front line to really contend. Commander is actually a decent bit exposed, so it'd be really nice to see these units jump on top of it, but I don't think that we really have the vision for it. Yeah, we don't actually see the commander where it is right now. We do see light laser turrets coming up though, so that's usually a pretty good telltale sign that the commander is somewhere nearby. Blitz on blitz action. Or flashes, as I was prone to calling them a while ago. But they are not flashes, at least not in this game. We've got to use the bar terms. It's time to get used to them, everyone. I know a lot of you people are coming from the old TA days, the PA games, all the balanced annihilation, all the total annihilation, supreme commander, all that stuff. We got to learn the bar names, otherwise these poor new players are never going to know what we're talking about when we use the old names for everything. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, tirades aside, we are switching into medium tank production here, which is quite nice. We're actually doing a lot better on metal than I would have expected. Just as well on energy too. So we have the funds here to make this work. We just need to put the funds into the proper locations. Now what I'd really love to see is all this metal eaten up by Zeal, whether we can get a construction bot over there or move the commander over, some way or another, making sure that metal does not go back to the blue player. That would really seal the deal here, or Zeal the deal here. Okay. Really sorry about that one, Zeal. This constructor is also idle. This could definitely be building more defenses or eating up some metal or doing some other stuff. Tiny little nitpicks, though. I'm sure there's a lot of APM being flung all over the map trying to control these blitzes and just get as much damage out as possible. Suddenly, Snoopa is in a really bad position, though, because, of course, this is open on basically every front. There's so much room for harassment, and Snoopa is basically just going to be forced to play defense simulator, which is never really a good foot to be on in Beyond All Reason. If you think about it, you are rewarded heavily for being aggressive because you can reclaim from that field and you can make a whole lot more units and continue the push. Defensive play is much harder because you have to defeat their entire enemy wave and then restock your forces in time for another one. So counter-strike potential is huge, but the actual defensive potential is very, very difficult to maintain. Now, these medium tanks are going to be quite good, and we do have more and more construction bots out on the field now. One of them is just eating up metal, which I quite like. Indeed, we do have the commander still continuing to build light laser defenses, absolutely critical in these games, because otherwise the enemy can just produce a ton of ticks or rovers or other very, very light scout craft, and they're going to be a huge pain. Zeal recognizing the medium tanks and pulling out some of their own, which is quite nice. I do like to see it. We're actually going up to some advanced solar panels. Really, really nicely done. Noticing that Snoopa has been, late to put on the pressure here for a little while, and so taking advantage of that by, building some better economy in the main base. I think that's a great idea. If you can afford it, and if you, you know that it's safe, definitely worthwhile. It's going to give you a huge advantage. especially considering how much more efficient those advanced solar panels are versus the regular ones. If you noticed, I haven't been as critical about the solar panels in this map. That is because, of course, the wind power is very, very abysmal, and so not worth going for windmills at all. Artillery shelling away here. The commander maintaining the light laser turret, but it is falling pretty quickly. There's also some good chats going on here. I tend to find that the 1v1s tend to have a really good chat because there's usually a lot of spectators and it's also a lot of the really experienced players. So if, for instance, you're ever looking for a good, a good example of a place where you might find some helpful people, check out some 1v1s in progress. Find the pro 1v1 lobby. There's usually at least one running. Sometimes there's some noob 1v1s too, but the pro ones will definitely have a lot of players, a lot of spectators. You can see there's so many spectators in this game and they're all just talking strategy here. And if you've been reading that, I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about, but at a glance I can tell that they're having a nice discussion. Agitator coming up. That is quite interesting. Do they see it? They do not. Wow, this agitator would be extremely annoying here. Rover is brought to the front lines. Can the rover see it? The rover can see it. They find the agitator here. Very, very nicely done. Yeah, what do you do about this, right? You have to commit forces, because if this agitator comes up, that's a really, really burdensome place for it to be. You can see just how far this thing can reach. You can basically go all the way to the base over here. This is a very risky gambit. Zeal is out of power, and these tanks are encroaching very, very close by. Oh, we need a D-gun. There we go. See another one? Nice. Nice. Getting 2 per D-gun is very, very nice indeed. Oh, we even managed to dodge the constructor vehicle right there. Very nice. Zeal with the professional micro right there. Absolutely phenomenal D-gun. Very nicely done. Unfortunate that Snoopa could not get the pick right there. That could have been devastating. Very, very nicely done. Zeal is running low on build power. I'd love to see some more of these construction turrets thrown up. We have 5 advanced solar panels coming up here, and I think we could probably even go for a little bit more, but I think we should definitely build 4 construction turrets or a couple more of those construction vehicles. Either one works. Snoopa doing an excellent job of hanging in here and keeping up the pressure. I would love to see some constructors sent backwards here to clean up all of this mess and fold it back into the army. There's definitely more than enough metal here. Yeah, 3,500-ish metal, more or less, give or take, in order to build up a T2 economy. So I think I would love to see that. Especially now that we have proper vehicles out, we have the artillery out, we have the T1 medium tanks out. I think that would be quite phenomenal. We could actually use that metal in a little bit of a better way. These 3 light laser turrets actually managed to bring down those tanks. That was quite nice. The last standing laser turret. Now, one interesting thing here is that Zeal has to get reinforcements from all the way back here, whereas Snoopa, of course, just builds reinforcements right on the front line, meaning that they come out a whole lot quicker. That is a nice little defensive advantage, and one that often gets underestimated. This is a really nice move, patrolling this blitz back and forth so that it continually draws fire, wastes the artillery fire of the blue player here. Very nicely done. Another way to do that, by the way, if you don't want it to stop and start attacking, is to put it on repeat. So you click on a unit, and then you click repeat, and then you right-click, and then shift right-click another spot, and it'll just move back and forth. And that way you won't have to worry about it stopping if it encounters an enemy. Just another helpful tip for you today. But the gauntlet is finally out and about, and it's going to start laying down some really oppressive fire. We've got 1 out, but we could definitely see some more coming up soon. These tanks are posturing, trying their very best to make sure that they can stay alive as long as they can, but also not waste any opportunities to lay down some fire here. It's kind of a battle of, like, how many can you pick off every time you decide to dip back in. That's a good note. These 2 turrets cost as much as T2. That is true. These gauntlets are very expensive, but for what it's worth, we did pick a fairly strategic location for these. We could absolutely start harassing with the long-range bombardment all the way over here. Just turn this to high trajectory. There's a setting here. You can just click this to high trajectory. That allows you to lob these shots up, kind of like these shell shockers would. Very, very nice option. But right now we need it for the harassment here on the front lines, putting down a bunch of firepower. Very nice. Very good option for us to lay down some long-range artillery fire. At least until we get the Mausers out and about. But there's no tech transition on the horizon. Instead, we have a bot transition here, which is interesting. We have some Centurions moved to the front lines, or being produced so that they can move to the front lines, I guess you should say. And yeah, it's time for these gauntlets to start raining in some firepower. Causing a whole lot of pain here. Being a really, really big disturbance to the blue player. This is a bit dangerous. This is a bit dangerous, expanding up north. That is interesting. Snoopa deciding to risk it to expand the economy, which I think is probably necessary here. Otherwise, we're just going to be outgrown here. Although the southern half of the map is not expanded towards yet. So I would love to see a construction vehicle sent around to just check out what's going on over here. Now this was really nice. Snoopa has actually reclaimed all of the production facilities back here in order to build up the production on the front lines. So I think this is really, really nice indeed. All this metal finally being folded back in, and that's going to allow them to get a nice little advantage. That being said, these gauntlets are going to be tremendously painful to deal with. Centurions are falling left and right. We do have a heavy laser turret up on the front as well. I would love to see this switch to the high firing mode. I'm not sure if it does more damage that way, but I always feel like it does. Either way, though, it's just going to keep shooting. And there's no radar jammers here, so these actually have perfect radar vision. Well, not perfect, but you know what I mean. They have radar vision, so they can shell away at a long range here, which is always quite nice. Starting up another one right here on the front lines. This is a kind of a weird way to siege bases, but it seems to be working, so who am I to say? Very, very, very expensive way to siege these bases, but certainly one option. Ooh, I don't know if we want to throw away these medium tanks like this, though. There's so much production here that we can actually just heal this up. And the beamer does go down eventually, and we find the production facility. So I'd love to see this thing continuing to fire. I would even dump fire it onto this facility, shoot it right here, just so that we can keep damaging that and forcing them to repair it as opposed to build the units out of it. Blitzes take down the bot lab, which is quite nice. More blitzes are moving in here. But we definitely don't want to overextend. It's a tricky situation. Wow, but this gauntlet has actually come up and online. Incredible. This gauntlet is going to be a huge pain. This has to be addressed. If Snoopa doesn't address this gauntlet, then that's going to be the game. It has to be the game. Because this thing is in such a terribly dangerous position here. Zeal using the commander even to ward off some of the fire here. Oh! Gauntlet just shot the commander right in the face. And what can this thing see? Is there radar jamming? I think there's just no radar. Yeah, it looks like our radar tower is actually blocked, so we can't actually see over here. Zeal would be wise to put down another radar right around here, just so that these have a more accurate vision of exactly what they can be shooting at. But still, I think it's going to figure it out eventually. Yep, indeed, the facility comes back up, or rather, the production starts back up, and that means that these gauntlets are going to be continuing to rain down fire here. The Resbot's doing their best to put units back together on the field. This is what I was talking about earlier, but I think it might be a little bit too little too late, as there's now so many medium tanks on the field for Zeal that I don't know if this light artillery or this light contingent of forces is going to be enough. A few blitzes trying to push around here and harass, and I think that's definitely an excellent idea. If anything, I would love to see a bot lab produced on the northern section here, and then we make a ton of ticks and we run them by the base here. We can make 50 ticks, and at a relatively low cost to the economy, we'd be able to run them all the way by and devastate the economy of the red player. But of course, Snoopa doesn't have the perfect vision like we do, so it's really difficult to make that tactical decision. So I can understand being hesitant on doing that. We do have another bot lab up here being produced, or produced already, I should say. Lazarus come out, and they are going to start resurrecting a whole lot of these units, which is really nice, of course. But yeah, the artillery fire just continues to hail. Light laser turret brought to the front line here. And the units begin marching forward. Production of Snoopa is slowly stalling as a lot of these metal extractors get taken down by the artillery pieces here. We have a radar jammer that comes up, but it's a little bit too late. We've already seen how much damage these artillery can do, and they have plenty of time to do it. Zeal in a little bit of trouble here. Down to 29%. The T1 medium tank's actually getting a whole lot of hits on. Zeal is wise to retreat the commander at this point. Things are looking pretty dire here. Blitz is actually sent around, do a little bit of raiding. That's very nice to see. Definitely a mark of skill. If you can continue to keep that pressure up, you can continue raiding even in the heat of battle. That can be really, really powerful. But indeed, Snoopa calls GG. Well played. And decides to resign the match. Very, very nicely done by Zeal. Really phenomenal match. Really good job walking these defenses forward. A bit unconventional at the very least, but definitely an interesting way of doing it. And at the end, that amount of pressure finally just built up and Snoopa was forced to concede. Very nicely done to our red player. Yeah, you can see neck and neck here, but those static defenses got so much efficiency that the red player Zeal here was actually able to contest. Very nicely done. Thank you very much for submitting this game, and I hope you had a phenomenal time watching. Have a great rest of your day.